According to the National Electrical Code, specifically Section 230.6, conductors entering a building from a point outside are considered outside the building for a distance of not more than 2.5 meters, which is approximately 8 feet. This measurement is taken from the point where the conductors enter the building. There is an exception to this rule when the conductors are installed underground and enter the building at or below grade level. In this case, since the conductors enter the building at grade level, they can be considered outside the building for their entire length, including the portion that is underground. This means the conductors can be treated as outside secondary conductors. This allows you to take advantage of Section 240.21 C4 of the National Electrical Code, which pertains to the overcurrent protection of secondary conductors. Section 240.21 C covers the requirements for the overcurrent protection of transformer secondary conductors. Specifically, 240.21 C4 addresses situations where the secondary conductors are considered outside the building. Under these conditions, you may not be required to install an overcurrent device at the transformers. Now let's delve deeper into the specifics of National Electrical Code Section 240.21 C4 and how it applies to this scenario. This section outlines the conditions under which overcurrent protection is not required at the transformer secondary. These conditions often involve scenarios where the secondary conductors are short and protected in a specific manner. Typically, the length of the secondary conductors is limited, and they must be protected from physical damage. Also, the overcurrent protection at the load end of the conductors must meet specific requirements. The goal of these rules is to ensure that the secondary conductors are adequately protected against overcurrents, even if there is no overcurrent protection device located directly at the transformer. Now consider the implications of running the secondary conductors underground below the slab. By doing so, you are essentially encasing the conductors in a protective environment. This reduces the risk of physical damage and minimizes the potential for faults. The underground insulation also helps to dissipate heat, which can be a factor in conductor ampacity. It is important to ensure that the underground raceway system is properly designed and installed to meet the requirements of the National Electrical Code. This includes using approved conduit and fittings, providing adequate burial depth, and properly supporting the conductors within the raceway. Furthermore, it's crucial to verify that the overcurrent protection at the main tie-in switchboard is properly sized and coordinated to protect the secondary conductors. The overcurrent devices at the switchboard must have an ampacity rating that is sufficient to carry the load, but also low enough to protect the conductors from overload and short-circuit conditions. To determine the appropriate size of the overcurrent devices, you will need to perform a detailed load calculation. This calculation should take into account all of the loads that will be served by the transformers, including lighting, receptacles, equipment, and any other electrical devices. The load calculation should also consider any applicable demand factors, which are used to account for the fact that not all loads will be operating at the same time. Based on the load calculation, you can then select the appropriate size of the conductors and the overcurrent devices. It is essential to consult the National Electrical Code tables to determine the allowable ampacity of the conductors based on their size, insulation type, and installation method. In addition to the overcurrent protection requirements, you must also comply with all other applicable requirements of the National Electrical Code. This includes grounding, bonding, and wiring methods. Grounding is essential for providing a path for fault current to return to the source, which helps to trip overcurrent devices and prevent electrical shock hazards. Bonding is used to connect all of the metallic parts of the electrical system together, which helps to equalize the voltage potential and reduce the risk of electrical shock. Wiring methods refer to the way in which conductors are installed and supported. The National Electrical Code specifies different wiring methods for different applications, depending on factors such as the environment, the voltage level, and the type of occupancy. When designing the electrical system for the laboratory facility, it is crucial to work closely with a qualified electrical engineer. The electrical engineer can help you to ensure that the system is designed and installed in accordance with all applicable codes and standards. The electrical engineer can also perform a detailed coordination study to ensure that the overcurrent devices are properly coordinated to minimize the impact of faults. The coordination study will involve analyzing the time current characteristics of the overcurrent devices to ensure that the device closest to the fault will trip first, while the upstream devices will remain closed. This helps to isolate the fault and prevent unnecessary outages. In summary, by running the secondary conductors underground below the slough, you can potentially take advantage of National Electrical Code Section 240.21 C4 and avoid installing overcurrent devices at the transformers. However, it is essential to carefully consider all of the applicable requirements of the National Electrical Code and to work closely with a qualified electrical engineer to ensure that the electrical system is designed and installed safely and in compliance with all applicable codes and standards. Furthermore, proper documentation and labeling of the electrical system are essential for future maintenance and troubleshooting. The documentation should include detailed drawings of the electrical system, including the location of all conductors, equipment, and overcurrent devices. The labeling should clearly identify all of the electrical components and their function. Now, let's discuss some additional considerations for this specific installation. Firstly, it is important to verify the local amendments to the National Electrical Code. The jurisdiction in which the laboratory facility is located may have adopted amendments to the National Electrical Code that modify or supplement the requirements. It is essential to be aware of these amendments and to comply with them. Secondly, it is important to consider the potential for future expansion of the laboratory facility. The electrical system should be designed to accommodate future loads and to allow for easy expansion. This may involve installing spare conduits and raceways and providing adequate space in the switchboard for future breakers. Thirdly, it is important to consider the reliability of the electrical system. The laboratory facility may house sensitive equipment that requires a reliable power supply. To improve the reliability of the electrical system, you may want to consider installing a redundant power supply or an uninterruptible power supply. A redundant power supply will provide an alternate source of power in the event of a failure of the primary power supply. An uninterruptible power supply will provide temporary power in the event of a power outage, allowing critical equipment to continue operating until the power is restored or the equipment can be safely shut down. Fourthly, it is crucial to select high-quality electrical equipment. The electrical equipment should be designed for the specific application and should be rated for the environment in which it will be installed. The equipment should also be tested and certified by a recognized testing laboratory. Fifthly, it is important to provide adequate ventilation for the electrical equipment. The electrical equipment can generate heat, which can reduce its lifespan and increase the risk of failure. Adequate ventilation will help to dissipate the heat and keep the equipment cool. Sixthly, it is crucial to establish a regular maintenance program for the electrical system. The maintenance program should include periodic inspections, testing, and cleaning of the electrical equipment. The maintenance program will help to identify potential problems early on and prevent them from escalating into major failures. Seventhly, consider the impact of harmonics on the electrical system. Harmonics are distortions in the voltage and current waveforms that can be caused by nonlinear loads such as electronic equipment and variable frequency drives. Harmonics can cause a variety of problems, including overheating of equipment, increased energy losses, and interference with communication systems. To mitigate the effects of harmonics, you may need to install harmonic filters. Eighthly, think about surge protection. Surges are transient overvoltages that can damage electrical equipment. Surges can be caused by lightning strikes, switching operations, and other events. To protect the electrical equipment from surges, you should install surge protection devices. Ninthly, you must comply with all applicable safety regulations. The safety regulations are designed to protect workers from electrical hazards. You should ensure that all workers who will be working on the electrical system are properly trained and equipped to do so safely. Tenthly, ensure proper coordination between the electrical, mechanical, and plumbing systems. These systems often interact with each other, and it is important to ensure that they are properly coordinated to avoid conflicts. For example, the electrical system must be sized to accommodate the loads of the mechanical equipment, and the plumbing system must be designed to avoid interfering with the electrical wiring. In addition to these considerations, it is also important to document all of the decisions that are made during the design process. This documentation should include the reasons for the decisions, the alternatives that were considered, and the data that was used to support the decisions. The documentation will be valuable for future maintenance and troubleshooting. Finally, remember that the National Electrical Code is a living document that is constantly being updated. It is important to stay up to date on the latest changes to the code and to ensure that the electrical system is designed and installed in accordance with the latest requirements. Always consult the latest edition of the National Electrical Code and any applicable local amendments before beginning any electrical work. Remember that this narration is for informational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for professional advice from a qualified electrical engineer. Always consult with a qualified professional before making any decisions about your electrical system. By following these guidelines, you can help to ensure that the electrical system for the laboratory facility is designed and installed safely, reliably, and in compliance with all applicable codes and standards. Also consider the voltage drop in the conductors. Voltage drop is the reduction in voltage that occurs along the length of a conductor due to its resistance. Excessive voltage drop can cause equipment to malfunction and can reduce the efficiency of the electrical system. The National Electrical Code recommends that the voltage drop in branch circuits should not exceed 3% and that the voltage drop in feeders should not exceed 5%. To minimize voltage drop, you should use conductors that are large enough to carry the load, and you should keep the length of the conductors as short as possible. It's also important to consider the environmental conditions in which the conductors will be installed. The temperature and humidity can affect the ampacity of the conductors. The National Electrical Code provides ampacity correction factors for different environmental conditions. You should use these correction factors to ensure that the conductors are properly sized for the environment in which they will be installed. Also, verify the short circuit current rating of all electrical equipment. The short circuit current rating is the maximum amount of current that the equipment can safely withstand during a short circuit. The equipment should be rated to withstand the available short circuit current at its location in the electrical system. To determine the available short circuit current, you will need to perform a short circuit study. The short circuit study will involve calculating the amount of current that would flow during a short circuit at various points in the electrical system. You should use the results of this short circuit study to select equipment that is properly rated for the available short circuit current. Always remember to use properly sized conduit and conductors. Ensure you leave enough space in the conduit for heat dissipation. Using the correct conductor ensures the current can pass through without overheating the wire. Lastly, ground the transformer appropriately. The ground wire is a safety wire. Make sure the transformers are grounded properly. This is a summary of important things to remember.